True resilience is not born from success, but from failure. The moment things fall apart begins. Each time you're knocked down, life isn't telling you to stop. It's inviting you to rise with more wisdom, with more wisdom, more strength, and more clarity. The people who never give up aren't those who've never failed. They're the ones who've learned how to turn their scars into sources of power. Let's talk about failure. Not the abstract kind, but the raw, personal kind. The kind that knocks the wind out of you, that dismantles your self-image, that leaves you staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, wondering if it was all for nothing. We've all been there in some form. And yet, we live in a culture that treats failure like a final verdict rather than an initiation. But I want to suggest something radically different. Failure is not the end of the path. It is the path. It's the crucible where resilience is forged and character is formed. There's a psychological principle known as post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that for some individuals, adversity doesn't just leave scars, it leads to transformation. These aren't people who avoided the fire, they walked through it and came out forged, stronger, wiser, more grounded. What separates those people from the ones who stay stuck? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's the decision to face pain head on and learn from it, rather than be destroyed by it. Now, when you hit rock bottom, whether that's losing a job, a relationship, a dream, it's easy to think, this is it. I'm done. But that moment, that collapse is actually the birthplace of something else, awareness. You begin to see what you previously denied or ignored. You're forced to confront the truth about your limitations, your fears, and your illusions. That confrontation hurts, yes, but it also opens the door to real growth. And let me be clear, real growth is not pleasant. It's not neat, it's brutal, but it's honest. So, and anything honest has the power to transform. Philosophically, this echoes an ancient idea, the hero's journey. The hero never becomes who they're meant to be without first descending into chaos, into the unknown, into loss. Think of the myth of the phoenix. The bird doesn't merely survive, it burns to ash and rises anew. That's not metaphor, that's biology, that's psychology, that's reality. You can't become who you're meant to be until the version of you that can't handle it dies. And that process, that death of the weak, naive, or arrogant parts of ourselves, that's what failure is trying to do. If we let it, it's easy to glorify success, but success alone doesn't teach you much. Comfort doesn't demand introspection. But failure, it demands everything. It asks, who are you when no one is watching? And who are you? Who are you when you're not getting the results you expected? Who are you when all you've got is grit and a decision not to quit? That's when your real identity begins to take shape. Not when you win, but when you choose to stand back up. But here's the paradox. We often see successful people and assume they had it easy or that they're just built differently. What we don't see are the silent wars they've fought, the nights they doubted themselves, the failures they endured. What separates them is not the absence of failure, it's the refusal to let failure define the narrative. They failed, then they learned, then they built, then they failed again, and they kept going. That's what never giving up really means. It's not stubbornness for the sake of ego, it's not blind optimism. It's a conscious choice to stay in the fight because you've seen what S on the other side of pain, and you know it's worth it. It's understanding that failure isn't your enemy. It's your mentor. It's trying to teach you something. It's trying to reshape you into someone capable of bearing the weight of success. Because let's be honest, true success is heavy. It requires strength, and strength is built through hardship, not in spite of it. So the next time you fall, because you will, don't panic, don't spiral. Breathe, ask yourself, what is this moment trying to teach me? Then listen carefully. and keep moving forward. Because in the end, the people who rise the highest are the ones who learned how to get back up when everything inside them says, stay down. That's the power of refusing to give up. That's the fire that forges you into something more than you were. And if you let it, that fire won't just change your story. It will define your legacy. Motivation is fleeting. It rises and falls like emotion. But discipline is built. It's the quiet commitment to show up even when you don't feel like it. When everything around you says, give up, discipline says, keep going. And the more you train that internal muscle, the more unstoppable you become. Not because it's easy, but because you've decided your purpose is worth the cost. When we speak about the act of never giving up, it's crucial to understand that persistence is not merely a matter of stubbornness or blind willpower. It's far more nuanced than that. True perseverance involves a profound psychological engagement with failure, recognizing it, learning from it, and then using it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. There's a subtle but critical distinction here. Persistence without reflection can lead to futile effort, but persistence with insight becomes the engine of growth and transformation. From a psychological perspective, failure is often the crucible where resilience is forged. When you encounter setbacks, and you inevitably, there's a temptation to view them as definitive judgments on your worth or ability. That's the first trap. But those who succeed are not those who never fail. They are those who refuse to be defined by their failures. Instead, they use failure as feedback. They engage in what psychologists call adaptive coping, a process that involves confronting the reality of a situation, analyzing what's wrong, and adjusting their approach accordingly. This is where the philosophical underpinnings come into play. The Stoics, whose wisdom remains incredibly relevant today, saw obstacles not as interruptions to their plans, but as opportunities for practice and growth. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This mindset reframes failure from being a wall to being a doorway. Consider how this applies in practical terms. When you face a setback, the immediate emotional response might be frustration, disappointment, or even despair. Those feelings are real and valid, but the transformative act is to move beyond them, to engage your rational faculties and ask, what can this experience teach me? What assumptions do I need to question? What skills do I need to develop? The person who never gives up understands the failure is not the end of the story, but a crucial chapter in the narrative of success. Psychological research supports this perspective. Studies on grit and growth mindset, concepts popularized by researchers like Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck, demonstrate that those who perceive failure as a learning opportunity are far more likely to achieve long-term goals. They cultivate what Dweck calls a growth mindset, the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and perseverance. This mindset is the antidote to despair and defeat. But there's another layer here, a more existential dimension. Failure forces us to confront something deeply uncomfortable, the reality of our limitations. And this is where many give up, because it's painful to acknowledge that you are not omnipotent or invulnerable. Yet, paradoxically, it is precisely through this confrontation with limitation that true strength emerges. When you face your limits, honestly, you choose to move forward anyway. You are practicing a form of courage that transcends mere bravery. It is a moral courage, the courage to keep living authentically despite adversity. This is reflected powerfully in the work of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist whose life and writings offer profound insight into the human capacity for resilience. Having endured one of the darkest chapters in human history, he came to understand suffering in a deeply personal way. Yet what stands out in his reflections is not only the pain, but the freedom he discovered within it. the ability to choose one's response. Frankl observed that even in the most difficult conditions, individuals retain the inner freedom to shape their attitude. And this, he argued, is the foundation of meaning and enduring strength. When you decide not to give up, you're exercising that freedom. You're asserting your dignity, your values, and your will to grow, even when circumstances threaten to reduce you. There's something deeply empowering in that realization. Resilience, in this light, is not simply enduring hardship. It's engaging with it. It's choosing to respond with clarity and integrity, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And that choice is available to all of us. Really, practically speaking, cultivating resilience means building the internal and external structures that help you stay grounded in the face of failure. It's learning to slow down your reactions, to observe what's happening inside of you before leaping to conclusions or decisions. It's reflecting rather than ruminating, and it's choosing growth. Not denial, not avoidance, but conscious adaptation. Surround yourself with voices that hold you accountable, that offer honest feedback, not to tear you down, but to help you rise more skillfully. Because resilience isn't forged in isolation. It's shaped through dialogue, through connection, and through the willingness to remain teachable. Really. So what does this process look like in action? First, acknowledge failure honestly. Don't numb it and don't pretend it doesn't hurt. Sit with it. Listen to what it reveals about your assumptions, your skills, and your path. Then use that data to recalibrate, make adjustments, not just to what you're doing, but to how you're thinking. And finally, recommit, not out of stubbornness, but from a deeper, clearer understanding of why the pursuit matters in the first place. That cycle, fail, reflect, adjust, recommit, is the engine of perseverance. The truth is, failure is not your enemy. It is, paradoxically, one of your greatest teachers, if you let it be. To never give up doesn't mean you charge ahead blindly. It means you engage wisely. You remain open to being shaped, not shattered by experience. And when you take that posture, every failure becomes part of your evolution, refining, strengthening, expanding your capacity. We've been conditioned to avoid discomfort, but growth lives there. Pain reveals our vulnerabilities, but also our potential, strips away illusions and demands honesty. And in that rawness, you find the materials with which to rebuild more intentionally, more truthfully. If you can sit with your pain, not rush past it, not drown in it, but sit with it, you'll discover that it carries instruction. It teaches endurance, self-awareness, and meaning. And there's a fundamental shift that happens when you begin to see resilience not as merely surviving adversity, but as engaging with it in a way that transforms you. Psychologically, this means learning to regulate your emotional responses. Our nervous systems are built to react, fight, flight, freeze, but through practice, mindfulness, self-reflection, and emotional discipline, we can move from reaction to response. That's a skill. And like all skills, it can be developed over time. Philosophically, the Stoics remind us that while we may not control the external, we are not powerless. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That isn't just a clever phrase. It's a reorientation of the soul. Obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. It's not about denying hardship. It's about choosing to derive strength and insight from it. Holy meaning plays a crucial role here. As Frankl, those who could connect their suffering to a higher purpose, no matter how small, were more likely to endure. When your struggle is connected to something meaningful, something beyond the pain itself, it transforms. It becomes more than survival. It becomes service. It becomes a quiet, powerful act of defiance against despair. Darling, to live that way, to build resilience through conscious engagement with suffering, guided by meaning, is to embody what it truly means to never give up. Okay, so remember, you may not always choose what happens to you, but you always choose how to meet it. And in that choice lies your strength, your freedom, and your future. And that thriving, on a practical level, building resilience means developing habits that reinforce your capacity to endure and adapt. Physical health matters. Adequate sleep, nutrition, and exercise fortify the body's stress response. Mental habits such as journaling or reflective practice enable you to process setbacks and extract lessons. Self-connection serves as a critical buffer. Resilience flourishes in community, where shared struggles become sources of strength rather than isolation. But resilience also demands humility. It requires you to accept when you need help, when you must slow down or change course. Persistence. Without this humility risk, the resilient individual knows the difference in futile struggle. They recognize when to rest, when to recalibrate, and when to innovate. This discernment is essential for sustainable endurance. It's important to acknowledge that resilience is not about erasing pain or hardship. Rather, it's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the joys and the sorrows, the victories and the defeats, and allowing that complexity to deepen your character. To never give up is to develop a kind of inner toughness that is tempered by wisdom and compassion. It's a strength that doesn't harden you into rigidity, but makes you flexible and responsive. And here lies a crucial point. Resilience is deeply tied to identity. When you face adversity, you are forced to confront who you are and what you stand for. This is a moment of existential reckoning. The question becomes not just, can I endure this, but who do I become through enduring this? Each challenge, each failure, each setback offers the possibility of transformation. When you choose to rise again, you are actively crafting your own narrative, your own story of meaning. So, what does this mean for you? It means that cultivating resilience is one of the most powerful ways to ensure that you never give up. It means engaging with life's difficulties, not as curses, but as invitations to become stronger, wiser, and more purposeful. It means training yourself to respond rather than react, to seek meaning rather than despair, and rather than withdraw into isolation. In the final analysis, resilience is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure and transcend. It's not about avoiding failure, pain, or loss. It's about embracing these realities with courage and grace. The more you cultivate resilience, the more you equip yourself to face life's inevitable storms and emerge not just intact, but transformed. Remember this, resilience is the quiet force that underpins persistence. It is the steady flame that flickers even in the harshest winds. When you build resilience, you build the foundation for a life that refuses to be defeated. So, rise with intention, stand with conviction, keep moving forward, not despite adversity, but because of it. That is the essence of never giving up. Too many people give up because they believe who they are now is who they'll always be. But the truth is, identity is fluid. You are not a static thing. You are a process, unfolding moment by moment. Every time you choose persistence over resignation, you reshape the kind of person you're becoming. You don't need to be extraordinary to begin. But if you begin and refuse to quit, you'll become someone you never thought possible. When we talk about never giving up, it's easy to focus on the heroic moments, the big wins, the triumphant comebacks, the dramatic victory. But the truth is far more nuanced. The real, unglamorous essence of persistence is found in the daily discipline. The small, consistent acts of showing up and doing the work, Even when motivation wanes and progress feels invisible. This commitment to disciplined effort is the backbone of enduring success. Discipline in this context is not about rigid punishment or harsh self-denial. It's about creating a reliable structure within which your goals can grow. Then it's the framework that allows you to harness your willpower effectively. Willpower, as compelling as it is in theory, is a limited resource. It fluctuates depending on your energy, mood, and circumstances. Discipline, by contrast, transforms willpower from a fleeting spark into a sustained flame. When you cultivate disciplined habits, you reduce the need to rely solely on willpower. You make success less about emotional highs or bursts of inspiration, and more about steady, deliberate progress. Consider the psychological principle of habit formation. Our brains are wired to conserve energy. When you create habits, automatic behaviors triggered by specific cues, you free up mental resources for more complex challenges. This is why routines matter. They act as scaffolding that supports your persistence. For instance, if your goal is to write a book, setting a daily writing time, no matter how small the session, builds momentum. Over time, these small sessions accumulate into significant progress, often unnoticed in the moment, but undeniable in the long run. Philosophically, discipline connects to the ancient concept of eudaimonia, Aristotle's idea of flourishing through virtuous living. It's not just about what you achieve externally, but who you become internally. When you practice discipline, you are cultivating virtues like patience, courage, and temperance. These virtues shape your character, grounding your persistence in a moral framework rather than mere ambition or desire for external rewards. There's also a profound psychological benefit to discipline that often goes unrecognized. It builds self-trust. When you consistently follow through on commitments to yourself, no matter how small, you reinforce your belief that you're reliable. This self-trust is essential because persistence demands that you rely most heavily on your own capacity to act. External validation or support can falter, but your internal sense of integrity becomes a bedrock. You come to know that you are someone who keeps going, who honors their word, especially to themselves. But discipline isn't about perfection, it's about resilience within imperfection. Life will throw curveballs, illness, fatigue, unexpected crises that disrupt your routines. Discipline allows for this flexibility. It's not a harsh jailer, but a wise guide. It encourages you to adapt, to recalibrate your efforts, rather than abandoning them altogether. This adaptability is critical because it keeps you in the game when many would quit. In the contemporary world, we often mistake motivation for discipline. Motivation is a feeling, sometimes intense, sometimes fleeting. Discipline is an action. The danger lies in waiting for motivation to strike before taking action. The more reliable path is to act regardless of how you feel in the moment. The paradox is that disciplined action often produces motivation as a byproduct. Progress fuels energy, energy fuels further progress. To put it another way, discipline builds a bridge between your present self and your future goals. Without it, those goals remain abstract dreams, desirable, but disconnected from your daily reality. Discipline roots your vision in everyday reality. It translates aspirations into tangible steps, one foot in front of the other. Cultivating discipline requires awareness and intention. It means understanding your limits and designing your environment to support your habits. This could be as simple as setting reminders, creating a dedicated workspace, or eliminating distractions. The aim is to reduce friction in your pursuit. You're not relying on brute willpower alone, but engineering your context to make persistence easier. Finally, discipline nourishes hope. It is a declaration that you believe your efforts matter, that change is possible, and that your goals are worth pursuing, even when the results aren't immediately visible. This hope is different from naive optimism. It's a grounded, hard-earned faith born from experience. Every day you honor your discipline, you reinforce that faith. So, as you reflect on the power of never giving up, remember this: the heroism lies not just in dramatic breakthroughs, but in the quiet, disciplined actions you take every day. Success is less about giant leaps and more about consistency. In the long arc of your journey, these steps become the architecture of your achievement and the foundation of your character. Let this truth guide you. Discipline is not a burden, but your greatest ally in persistence. It turns struggle into progress, chaos into order, and dreams into reality. Embrace the discipline to keep going, and you will find that the path to never giving up is paved with daily acts of courage and commitment. The world may not see your struggle. They may not cheer for your late nights, your small wins, your quiet perseverance, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. The most powerful transformations happen in private, in the choices no one sees, in the moments when you want to quit and don't. Never giving up isn't loud, it's quiet, it's lonely, but it's also sacred, and it's those silent victories that shape your destiny. When we speak of never giving up, one of the most critical and often overlooked aspects is the necessity of embracing failure, not just as an unfortunate obstacle, but as an essential and transformative part of the journey. Failure is the shadow that follows every attempt, the inevitable companion to any worthwhile endeavor. Yet, in our culture, failure is often stigmatized, feared, and avoided at all costs. This attitude not only limits growth, but actively impedes the process of persistence. To truly embody the principle of never giving up, we must learn to welcome failure as a teacher, a guide, and a stepping stone. From a psychological perspective, failure holds profound lessons that no amount of success can teach. When we fail, we encounter the raw truth of our limitations, our errors, and our blind spots. This confrontation can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it is indispensable. It demands honesty, brutal honesty with ourselves. Without this, growth becomes superficial. The willingness to face failure courageously allows us to extract wisdom from it, to understand what went wrong, and to adjust our course accordingly. It transforms each setback into a form of progress. Philosophically, this idea resonates with the ancient concept of anti-fragility, popularized by Nassim Taleb. Unlike fragility, which breaks under stress, anti-fragility grows stronger through adversity. Failure, then, is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to become more resilient, more capable. The individual who never gives up is one who has internalized failure as an integral part of their evolution, rather than as a signal to quit. But embracing failure requires a shift in mindset, a redefinition of what success truly means. Success is not a linear sense. It is a complex, often winding path marked by stumbles, recalibrations, and renewed efforts. This understanding frees us from the tyranny of perfectionism, which paralyzes many by setting impossible standards. Instead, it encourages us to engage fully in the process, knowing that each failure enriches our experience and hones our skill. Moreover, failure has a humbling effect that is essential for perseverance. It reminds us that we are fallible, that we must remain humble and open to learning. This humility is not weakness, but strength. It keeps us grounded, curious, and flexible. When we accept failure as part of the human condition, we free ourselves from the fear of judgment and ridicule, which are often the greatest deterrents to persistence. The courage to keep going despite failure is a mark of genuine strength and maturity. Failure also cultivates emotional resilience. The emotional sting of failure is real. It can shake our confidence and threaten our motivation. But by experiencing and processing this pain rather than avoiding it, we build the capacity to endure discomfort. This resilience is critical because persistence is not about the absence of hardship, it's about moving forward in spite of it. You learn to handle failure without giving up. You develop a psychological toughness that is invaluable for any long-term pursuit. The stories of remarkable individuals often highlight this relationship between failure and eventual success. Thomas Edison's famous quote about inventing the light bulb, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work," caps this truth perfectly. His relentless experimentation was a testament to his refusal to be defeated by failure. Similarly, countless innovators, artists, and leaders have faced repeated setbacks before reaching breakthroughs. Their journeys underscore that failure is not the enemy of success, but a necessary crucible for it. Importantly, failure should not be confused with defeat. Defeat is the final cessation of effort, the abandonment of the fight. Failure is a momentary state, a condition that invites action. Those who never give up understand this distinction deeply. They view failure as feedback, not finality. Each failure carries information about what to change, what to improve, what to avoid next time. They use failure as a compass to navigate the complexities of their goals. To cultivate this perspective, it's crucial to build a relationship with failure that is both compassionate and objective. Compassion allows you to forgive yourself for missteps and to maintain self-worth despite setbacks. Objectivity allows you to analyze failure without emotional distortion, extracting practical lessons rather than getting trapped in self-blame or despair. Balancing these attitudes fosters a constructive response to failure that propels persistence rather than derails it. In practice, this means embracing a growth mindset, a concept popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck. Those with a growth mindset see abilities and intelligence as malleable, developed through effort and learning. Failure is an opportunity for growth, not a reflection of innate inadequacy. This mindset is foundational for never giving up because it reorients the entire experience of challenge and setback from a threat to an invitation. So, as you consider what it means to never give up, remember this: failure is not the end of your story, but a vital chapter in it. The power of persistence lies not in avoiding failure, but in how you respond to it. Each failure endured and learned from strengthens your resolve, sharpens your vision, and deepens your understanding. Let this be your guiding truth. The path to success is paved with failures. Not failures as stops, but failures as steps. When you embrace failure, you arm yourself with the resilience and wisdom necessary to keep moving forward. Never giving up is not about never falling, it's about rising every time you do. That is where true strength lives. And that is the power you must claim